talking to them about
Yeah.
our work.
All right, it is 3:10. We'll call this meeting, emergency meeting, Wichita County Commissioners Court to order. Item was duly posted, way ahead of schedule. Appreciate the media and all y'all being here, because I know some of you probably last night or maybe the night before had the first night of somewhere more than 2 or 3 hours of sleep. So we'll do that. The first item is receive information, discuss, consider, or take action regarding the continued threat of flooding in Wichita County, Texas. I'm going to start run through. Sheriff, do you have anything to put forward? Or?
Not this time.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, commissioners, I'm going to run through each of y'all if you've got some, anything, really updates from our meeting on Tuesday.
Judge, I know that Lee's looking for some barricades that we have borrowed from the state. We've got some still stacked at the distribution center, the Brookshires building on Loop 11, as well as some pallets there for all of us to utilize. I think the group from Burke donated those to us to palletize some of the stuff we needed to do that we're gathering up. But I know Lee was a little concerned about some of the barricade, and Melvin turned in all of his to us already that were at the Cowboy Church, and then we've been piling everything or stacking them at Brookshires in order to store them there. The city had thought that that would be a good location for the interim.
Okay. I understood there's some effort if people want to bring their sandbags there. My personal feeling is I'd hang on to them for quite a while. You can do decorative art, but people, Sheriff knows how to print on them.
And by the way, Sheriff, when we get through with those we've got here, leave them here. We got a spot for them. I think. Okay, we've got a place out here. I think we can stop a little bit of our water problem that we experience. Just don't haul them away. We'll get them repositioned and we'll get a work crew in there. I just want to tell you that before we let them go. I've got.
Make sure we have them looking for.
Okay, I've got a spot for them. So, I was out this morning, Judge, with the road crew, and we're in kind of repair mode, trying to get some washed out culverts put back in and get things where we can. We're not completely fixing it, but we're getting it temporarily fixed so we can get traffic moving again, and had to replace some culverts and do some other things. I know all the crews are working hard to get that done, so we're about to the point we're going to get traffic moving again the way it should. But I would put out the word that if you're traveling in rural Wichita County, still be careful. There's some washout spots, some rough spots that you need to be aware of, and just slow down a little bit and pay attention, because it's going to be a while before we get that stuff back up to par. But they're working on it very hard right now. Yes. Oh, okay.
We have similar situations going on in back east of Pumpkin Center. We've washed a culvert or two out. We've had the road cut a time or two. They're up there now. The water's receded enough to actually get in there, so they've went ahead and prepared some of those. We still have multiple road closures there in those mile cutoffs of one another around Flippin Road and back south to 240. But we're making progress on them. It's receded enough in some instances to get through. We've been taking pictures of our damage where the water's rushed hard over the pavement, cut a lot of crevices. So we'll be moving on those as soon as we get a little more drier weather.
Lots of mosquito calls.
Yes.
From around the county. A lot of people calling, wanting to know what to do, why we're not spraying, and
Okay, well, the important thing in the spraying is it doesn't kill live mosquitoes.
Right.
Not unless they fly into the motor of the machine. But,
well, my comment has been, we gave up our effective chemicals years ago.
Yeah, but they are out. They do cover the whole county. That's a big effort with the amount of rain. There is no way.
You just can't cover it all.
They only get to right-of-way areas and what drifts off, so that's why people are encouraged to go by the health department. They were giving out those bags of seed-looking stuff, and you cast it on the water. Directions are on the side of it. And
I had a gentleman call me a while ago, said he had took a whole handful of those pellets and said they were still biting him, so.
the donut ones work. The donut ones work better. So.
And then he faded out. I don't know.
Get in the bathtub, cast it on the water. There you go. Okay. Mr. Gonzalez?
We've been checking
You think I'm kidding?
retreat, and it seems like it's going down to where we might be able to get in there.
Unless it came up from last night, it's passable.
Yeah, well, yeah, but at the very end, it is still water standing.
Just go fast. No, seriously, I think I went down and looked at it. I didn't take my car across it, but
Yeah.
for a dump truck or something like that,
Yeah.
I think you would be fine. I don't know what you're doing to get to the other side. Mr. Burton's house down there confirmed he has flood insurance. He's meeting the NFIP adjusters are in the county. They're meeting with homeowners. The interesting thing that's going to change what we're always used to doing is many people now, since 2007, 2008, have flood insurance.
Good.
So we should not see the deal we had when we had the 2008, especially in the center of the county, people weren't thinking they needed flood insurance, and I can certainly understand why. We had a massive effort of roll-offs out there and all, but we should not supply those where they are receiving the insurance funds because that should be covered.
Yeah, and part of the good thing about that was in that last flood we had, all those houses that were bought out, to where they couldn't
Took
build
some of them
there.
out of harm's way,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Two more of those if people had worked with us, they wouldn't be worried about it today.
Yeah.
And have called Senator Cornyn's office and also got Congressman Thornberry's office working with them to see if there's any latitude to FEMA's rules on buyouts. Those homes are going to flood again. There is no doubt in my mind. Lee, that one that's for sale, the real estate agent went in and said there was no water in it. And the odor was not a dead body, and they're not sure what it was. So, yeah.
Another thing we're working on, Judge, just so people will understand, we had a tremendous amount of dead trees and other debris wash up on our bridges, and the guys are working on that today too, trying to get them busted up. Some of it we'll have to burn it out to get it out of the way, but there's a lot of things. We got the sheriff's cow off the side of the road out there. It wasn't his, he just reported it to us. But anyway, but we had
I
a
thought y'all
lot.
had that at the command post. but-
Yeah, it had been so long since we'd had that kind of rain, we had a tremendous amount of debris coming out of those creeks. And they go to the bridges and the culverts, and then all of a sudden you've got them stopped up, and we're trying to get that all moved before we get another rain event, but it's gonna take some time to get around and get it all done.
Well, and the other thing, we've had a number of calls from people saying, I want you to come down and clean my ditches out. Once you go, the fence line's where we stop. Unless the county for some reason, has an easement to go beyond that fence line, we can't do that. That's the owner's responsibility. In some cases, if they've had blockage down where the canal comes through, where they have one of those siphons, now the water district has cleaned those out before. So if that's the case, between the debris and the beavers think that's an opportunity to build a dam at those.
Yeah, and the irrigation district has been a great help to us. They've removed some debris already.
Right. No, they're a good partner.
Yeah.
No, we've had good partnerships through all of this. So, okay. As you all have a chance to make contact with people and find out if we can ascertain the difference of who has flood insurance and who doesn't, then I would like to know that, because I want to be sure. We have to look at them and visit and find out, okay, did you decline flood insurance? Because they will not be FEMA eligible if they declined it. And my feeling is we'll work with them this time, but after that, they need to have flood insurance. Because this potential for it happening again is always there. So we want to, but as you all, as your people out working with them, get their name, their cell phone number, and whether they do or they don't have insurance. Anybody else here? Mr. Burgoyne, anything from you, sir?
We got 15 houses with major damage and 7 with minor damage. That's the most recent counts.
Where are they most all in the, what's outside of Wrangler's Retreat and Horseshoe Bend? I know there's 2 on 367. What else you got outside? That one out on 258, did we ever?
I didn't bring the list. They're scattered over 258, 367, Marion, Huntington, Wellington,
Okay.
and 1 in the city.
When you get a chance to get me a list, I'd appreciate that. And send it to all of us, and we'll try to check those out, determine the insurance. Yeah, thank you, Matt.
Were there 3, Lee, on Merriam Lane
Yes, I believe so.
that took water in them?
Yes.
One of those
Huntington.
judges, the house you've referred to me about one time, I know in the process at the time in 2007, they were having issue with who the ownership or something to that nature. One of those has to be that home. One of them may be a vacant rent house.
I think so. I know there was some people in a rent house out in that area that moved out. So you might check with the county clerk. I think there's a little more personal knowledge of that. It's not her rent house, but
Right.
okay. Anyone else? Okay. Ms. Stevens?
Okay. First, we need to go over kind of the things that we need to collect information on. And we're supposed to be reporting this information on a daily basis, but, we're not doing that yet.
Is that picking her up on, can you all hear it come through the speaker?
Not very well.
It's my laryngitis.
Deb's using Willie's mic. Is it on? Willie's mic? Deb has it on.
Oh, Deb's got it on.
Yeah.
She can use this one.
What, he's fine. She's got it on. Can we turn Willie's mic on? It's on?
We got a bunch of it. It may not be the right stuff, but we've got a bunch of it.
Yeah, no, okay.
Oh,
It does.
No, we can't hear it out here.
I'll hold it up to
I
my...
think it does. It may not, but seems like it should.
So the 4 main things that we need to do are the labor and the equipment and the materials and supplies and contractor. And that's generally our, we might have some contracted services, but mainly that's going to be our temporary employees. The record keeping for FEMA is atrocious, and it's hard to do because you're engaged in life-saving and property-saving measures, and you have to somehow keep all these detailed records. And but when we went through it on the fire, we got disapproved for some of the things because the volunteer firefighters didn't keep, they were fighting fires. I mean, give me a break. You don't stop and do this kind of busy work. But all of this stuff is required, and it's on the forms that I sent you. Most of it is going to be pre-populated on the forms that I sent y'all this morning, and but we're going to go over that a little bit. So on the labor, we have to know the regular hours and the overtime hours. Now, obviously, you're going to report your regular hours every day. That's the optimum. And then we're going to report the overtime hours at the end of the week. And I'll make those adjustments then. Y'all can either fill out those spreadsheets yourselves, or you can send us the information and we'll key it in for you. Margaret Sutton is doing the sheriff, and that's the biggest one of labor. Chris Harris is here in the front row. He's in the green shirt right there, and he's our grants accountant, and Chris will be doing most of the day-to-day operations on this collecting of all the information. The equipment is the most problematic because we have to have all kinds of information on the equipment. The equipment has to be matched to an operator, and so the operator's time has to be entered, and you have to know how many hours that person was using that equipment. And there can't be any duplications of one person using that equipment in the morning and the same person using it at the same time. Yes, sir.
Except for instances like light towers, things like that are unmanned. We take them out, we set them up on the sandbagging operation. We could probably capture that without tying that to an employee.
I would assume so, yeah.
Yeah,
What about the
generators, same thing.
barricades?
Yeah.
And I don't know that those are on the list, so here's the 6 pages of FEMA
He
equipment.
sent us the
It's on the email.
tab, it's a tab on the bottom of that form.
Yeah, and here's the, so what I need y'all to do when you turn in your, the employee has to be matched to it, so I'll need the employee name, number, and that's all in the spreadsheet. We'll go over that in a second. The time, the actual time on using this equipment, because most of it is an hourly rate. The exception is cars. So if you have somebody out in a patrol car, theirs is going to be on mileage. In a truck car or truck, doing patrol or transporting people, that's mileage, not hours. So we're going to have the mileage on those guys, gals. The most important thing is to use on this, yes?
On mileage, does that have to be an odometer or just a cumulative mileage for that day?
It needs to be,
For odometer to be best.
the odometer would be best, but I think they will accept just a total mileage for the day. But obviously, the better the records we have, the more it will stand up to scrutiny. And as Chris can verify, FEMA is notorious, A, for not knowing the rules and telling you one thing and coming in and auditing you on one set of rules, and then the next auditor comes in and audits you on a different set of rules. So we try to keep the information as clean and as detailed as possible. Now, this is all, premised on the fact that we're going to get this emergency declaration and we will be able to seek reimbursement. But it's it'll keep all of our, we'll know exactly how much we spent on the flood at the end anyway. On this list of all the equipment, the most important thing is the number in the far left-hand column, because it will tell me which piece of equipment it is. So we're not so good at picking. Mary's helped me on a couple of things so far on which pieces of equipment we have, but when y'all submit a piece of equipment, you need to match it to and put one of these numbers on it too, okay? So that we will know which piece of equipment to pick up. For instance, there's backhoes. There's 5 different kinds of backhoes. I won't have a clue which one it is, and it ranges all the way from $30 to $140 an hour, depending on the size of the backhoe. The same on the earth-moving equipment. Yeah.
Then what about our high-profile vehicles such as
This one's
our
not
Interman,
right.
we used to heavy water, and our 5-ton
Oh, yeah, it is.
truck to go, and we did a water rescue at Mount Lake Buffalo and Barnett Ranch, and drove through high water. And we got 3 Hummers we utilized through high water as well. And some of those guys drove their vehicles to the command post, but then they were assigned a Hummer, or they were assigned to the MRAP duties to go out to get people out of flood areas. We break those mileage down as well on those vehicles?
That's probably going to be ours, but because it's so big. But that is, I specifically looked for those, and I didn't see it on the list. But I have a question into our representative, Becky Purser, to ask. She's given us some information on one thing that Lee had that wasn't on the list. So there's an alternate list, but I don't have a copy of it yet. And so it might be on that, but that's so specialized, we might just have to get an opinion from her.
What about the vehicle that we pull our command folks with when it left the annex out to Breville Road?
Is it a truck?
It's a 3/4 ton truck, you're pulling it, just the big one here. It is on there? Okay.
There's,
But the reporting of that truck, because it was only from designation, it stayed there until it was returned back, it would be listed similar to a light pole scenario,
I
I
would
would
think so.
assume. Because it wasn't in active duty, it was on the job the whole time, but it,
yeah.
Down in the 8800 column there, they've got all different sized trucks. And
Yeah. Yes.
everything but a 3/4 ton,
yeah,
which is odd.
it's a 1 ton though, so
Yeah,
you're
it is a
good
1
to
ton.
go.
Yeah, if it's in between, I'd round up. So,
I think it is a 1 ton, isn't it?
2,500.
I think it is.
So Deborah, if there's a piece of equipment that we utilized and it's not on this list, we need to ask for a resolution on that.
yeah, if y'all will send me those and just say you didn't find the number on it, then I'll ask Becky if that's a reimbursable item. But most everything that's involved in mitigation or demolition, hazard cleanup should be allowed. You know, obviously they can't have this is a hugely comprehensive list, but there's some specialized equipment that we have that, not everybody would have. So, and then the materials and supplies, I don't have a column on it yet, but I will add that. And so anything that y'all are buying, we will know that from the invoices that come through, but Jeff sent me a copy of the invoice that was helpful so we could get that logged in. So if y'all have receipts or purchase, we'll have the purchase order, but if you go and buy something directly, send us that invoice, and it's best to email it to Chris so that we would have the electronic copy so we can save it, because they're going to want to go through all of those individual invoices, and if you don't have an invoice, they disallow the cost. Obviously, we're going to... Yeah. Your designated person, I guess that would be the best thing, yeah. And if you don't know who to send it to Chris, and we'll get it to the right place. So Chris is going to be handling all the detailed day-to-day operations paperwork, and he's so excited about it.
All the contractors that we hired to help put the Family Assistance Center in place, when they submit their invoices, all of that is we should capture all of that?
Yes. Yeah.
And it needs to be marked on that bill that was.
Right.
For the,
Flood.
well, yeah, but let's talk about let's call that thing the same thing. POD is a acceptable NIMS term for it. Multi-agency resource center is an acceptable term. We ought to decide on one. Let's go for POD. That's what we started out calling it. And get that on everything associated with that, so we know which thing we're talking about.
That'd be a MARC, a multi-agency resource center.
Well, it started out as
Well, it started out as a POD. That's what it was when we did it in 2000.
and that stands for
Point of distribution.
Point of Distribution.
Well, it's actually both. It's the parking lot would be one thing, and the building itself would be the other.
Yeah. Okay, call it the POD MARC. I don't
POD
care.
MARC.
But just agree on a name so we have everything associated with that.
We get to come up with synonym. This is a real government agency. And we'll
You'll
just
just
get
take
our synonym.
Or they won't know what Harvey Town is. Lee is on his way out to meet with Becky Purser, who is our finance agent, and with her boss, John, and I'm going to send him a thing saying, who do we send to equipment that doesn't fit the FEMA list to identify Do you have that, or is that who you're going to send that to?
Becky has answered the first question already, so,
Okay, then we'll leave that alone.
and Chris and I are developing a list of the stuff that's not on this list, so, but as clearly as, I mean, y'all, this is a pretty exhaustive list, so most everything will be on it. You just have to, you have to search for it, so, and y'all will know better than me.
Of
I
course, it's not a
couldn't find.
searchable list, is it? By-
Well, the PDF might be, we could probably convert it to a Word document. We could try that.
That might be a possibility.
Will you write that down? So try to convert it to a Word document so they can search it.
I may have missed it, but on the volunteer stuff, how do we document that? We borrowed equipment that we didn't pay for, but
We didn't get to deduct any of that volunteer time because we didn't have any out-of-pocket costs, did we, Chris, on the fire?
It's like the part of the 25, I guess, our matching portion of it.
Yeah.
It might be something.
So it can count towards our matching portion, so we would need to keep track of it, but we won't get
how do we
reimbursed
put
for
a
it.
price on that?
They have standard rates.
They have standard rates. Becky Purser figures that all needs, she's keeping the volunteer stuff. The thing also, like the sand that was all donated, we need a value from the person that donated that.
Becky and I called and got that.
Okay.
So we have that documented. Things like, Texoma Heat and Air, that volunteer their time to get the air conditioning going for the pod, Richard Mead.
We have to make up a bill and just say donated, but we need, that will count as community share.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anything like that you can think of, ask them to make an invoice
A lot
for
of
it.
things documented. I just didn't know how to capture it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I would appreciate y'all giving us a copy also because we'll have to have all of the whole 100% picture as well for the auditors when they come in.
Well, I'll get all of those volunteer things on one list, explain to you what it is, and maybe Becky can price it.
Okay.
Other than things that we get invoices.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Your son's out.
Pardon me?
Your son's out. That he was helping you.
Really?
Unless
Okay.
you were paying him for it.
I wasn't paying him.
Okay, so the most important thing other than the labor right now is for y'all to go through these lists and give it back to me with marked of what equipment y'all have used or expect to use with the code number on it. Then I'll build that into the spreadsheet so that it'll be a pop-up thing.
What is the start date? I mean, we
May
had
20th.
several rains that led up to the flood that we fought for, Donald, help me, 4 or 5 days before. I mean, when do we start tracking cost?
Some of our damage, Deb, in Pumpkin Center happened before the May 20th date where we washed out our culverts from the extensive and heavy rain. Same with Lee. He had a road washout before the 20th that was pretty extensive.
We lost Bonner Road. It's closed off.
I don't know the answer to that question, but we'll find out.
I'll work
If you-
on that. I'll contact Becky. I know at least from the date of the disaster declaration forward, I don't know how you go back. I'll find out how we capture the other.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Craig, when I talked to Craig, he's the one who said we're gonna do with him and Lee, we're gonna do the 20th, was why that day was picked. And I don't know the reasoning behind it, they just said it's on the 20th.
You talked with who?
Craig,
Breed,
Oh,
whatever
he
they
was
was.
there for a while.
Yeah, the first
they
guy.
had me go talk to him, and him and Lee discussed it, and then he said the 20th.
But I know that you would, Margaret, as well have additional, Dave and Derek, y'all were already dispatched in all corners watching some of the
Right.
trouble that we had coming up and coming on.
Yeah, exactly. I just know that's the day they picked, and so that's the day we started.
Yeah, and that's what I thought kind of the flood date would be, but I didn't know about how to account or if we could account for the additional.
And I assume it's still open, Judge?
Yes, because that's
Okay.
what we approved at the
Okay.
regular Commissioners Court meeting.
The
was to
extension of it.
continue,
Okay.
yeah. And I think that's 30 days at a time. Does that sound right, Meredith? 30 days at a time on that disaster, or is that till we end it?
Just tell you end it.
Okay.
The statute just required a ratification. The only
Okay.
time limits are the ones with the fireworks.
on the road damage that we have not been able to get out there and fix, like Bonner Road. We've got a bridge that's in terrible shape on Freeburg Church Road. Would we just take a swat at what we think it's gonna cost us to repair that
Yeah,
stuff?
they're all estimates right now. You might get,
Probably so for now, so they can get the number built. I know that's going to be super expensive, and
The bridge is gonna be expensive. Bonner Road, it's gonna be not as expensive, but it's gonna be a very pricey.
It's gonna be down at least 3 months before we even get a chance to get started.
what's the guy's name at the highway department?
It does our inventory,
Does the
Judge.
bridge
Yeah.
inventory, bridge inventory? I'd get his advice on that.
Yeah.
Well, and we have, you just gave us, it's on my desk, the letter from that bridge program.
Yeah.
Is that individual on that letter?
I'm
that
not sure
you
he is.
circulated?
But that's the one that sends us the deal, tells us about the bridges. And
He sends us a book every year.
Well, and I have the book, I know, I've been looking at it, and that's why when you said that,
Yeah.
it dawned on me.
that's who I'd talk to.
In fact, there's a bunch of these bridges we probably need to go and inspect
Yeah.
that could have
Yeah, I've got
some,
other big culverts and stuff, I
Yeah.
know it's water's still running through it.
we can't get to them.
Can't see underwater very good right now.
And I know in your magic book somewhere you probably have a price per mile of road to fix it, so you could just do a estimate on that of about based on
past experience.
based on what your layers are.
Good idea. We just put that together for CTERS
Yeah, we did.
stuff, so.
You've got possibly more extensive work, but the C-turds would be a good thing to start from. But
Okay.
you're looking at some areas totally rebuilding base up on that road. It's not,
Okay.
Deb, I had a question on the form, on the overtime. I just noticed where the employee name goes, and then the check-in time and check-out time. Once I exceed 8 hours, should I reinstall the employee again and do an overtime amount?
I
Or
think it's once you exceed 40 hours, then
Let-
they go to overtime.
Okay.
Let me show you what I think we can do for that. Make it easier. I think this is the one I had. Yeah. Okay, so this second tab called Personnel, and y'all all have this is in your package of information we gave, but, okay. So, the only thing, we need to be on this Personnel tab, not the rate calculation. So the only thing that you have to do as far as just the straight time hours is enter the stuff in the pink columns. And you can see that there's regular hours and there's overtime hours.
Okay.
And so all you'll do is enter the regular or the overtime hours, and that's all you have to enter on this sheet.
Okay.
And everybody will enter the total hours for the day on this sheet.
Okay.
Then, if they have equipment, you're going to enter the equipment time over here on the summary input sheet.
And I believe that's the sheet that I put employee time on. See where it says check in and check out?
Yes, I changed it up some, so
Okay.
It's now, I think, a little bit easier to use. So now, you don't really, the only time you have to, so I color-coded the columns to the instructions.
Okay.
So if it's this blue color, the information is required when equipment is used. The orange right here is for mileage, and that's when the vehicle is used for patrol or transporting people. And that's just for basically cars and trucks is the only thing that's going to have mileage. Everything else is an hourly rate. And then you have to fill in a brief description of what each person was doing while they were on duty for those hours. But the hours are going to, and then this part right here is going to pick your and there's instructions on it. So when you click on that, it tells you what to do if you have the electronic version up. And so each one of these that's in blue has to be filled out, and you'll start with the model, and then this will give the generic FEMA description from the actual table here.
Just the number.
Well, that'll be a description. There's a couple of descriptions that are in here, and this is so this would be like loader, comma, backhoe wheel.
Right.
And then but y'all would just say backhoe, and then I'm going to pick based on this generic, it's going to say the type, and then over here, although Barry told me they're all the same kind of backhoes, but there's a whole bunch of different kinds. And then this column right here would give you detail information so that you could pick what the activity was or the weight. So you can see that this would be like for the trucks. And
Now, have you sent us this one, Deb, since you've fixed it?
all of this information is in there, but your specific information is not. And it's real important. You have to use this little scroll bar to go down, and it stays down when you're there. This happens to be the sheriff's office, so I didn't put any of the big heavy equipment on it yet. But y'all's actually has a couple of pieces of equipment, but they're not right because they're not the right weight yet. So once I get your code numbers, then I'll build those lists too, and you can pick it. Or you can just tell us the code and we can enter it in there. And then all the stuff that says NA, that's going to pop up automatically when you enter this information about the equipment. But these all have to be filled in. If there's any equipment, all of the blue, anytime there's equipment, all the blue cells have to be filled in. The orange only has to be filled in if there's a vehicle that is used for patrol or transport. The pink, it has to be filled in each time. So there's and then if you just click on the cell, it tells you this is the instructions on what needs to do, okay? This over here is automatically, so they say don't enter any information in that cell. So if it's white or gray, you're not going to enter any information in there. Let's see.
What I had trouble with on the form that I was using of this version here, the top row populated, but the second row wouldn't populate for me. It wouldn't let me break out the number and give me the other.
Yes. Yeah, I noticed that too. So that's why I redid it so that hopefully it'll be a little bit better for you. This over here, on y'all's, you're going to be able to see the employee name, last name, first name, on your screen. So right now we just have the employee number, but on y'all's spreadsheets you'll be able to see who the actual employee is. And then this over here, the total personnel hours, is the hours that was used for the equipment. This is actually equipment costing hours. So that's gonna, this right here, this computation is based on these hours here and the rate that's going to pop up here based on the cost code that's going to pop up here. So it's kind of hard to see now, but if we were to put one of those in, we could see how it works. That's, oh shoot, I'm not used to not having a mouse, so bear with me here. So if we were to put something in right here, if we picked something, let's pick something that's on an hourly basis, so it'll know what to do. Okay.
Excuse me, Woody,
Yes, sir.
are they going to say the inspector like they did the first time? We done it, inspect the roads, tell us whether they're qualified?
I don't know that yet, Don. We can make that inquiry.
Because every day we fix something else, it's just
We-
more.
Okay, we document it, we take photos, but we can't let those roads sit waiting to see what the president's going to do.
You have to get the roads done.
Yeah. No.
So once you populate these fields, then it's going to calculate automatically the cost. This is not quite right because it has to be multiplied by 24. We didn't fix that piece yet. But so you would get the hour. The rate is $14 an hour. The time is 0.13 of a day of 24 hours. So it's a little bit more than just 0.13 hours. And then this would be the cost. So once we fix the formula that's in here, then this rate would come up to however many hours were worked, the 3 hours in this case, so 3 times 14 would pop up here. And then this column right here is going to come from the personnel, where this tab over here where you entered the information here is automatically going to calculate the total hours and the total cost, and it's going to feed it to that summary page. So the only thing you have to put it, not the only thing, but you know, rather than enter all this junk that's in here, you have to enter the total hours and then all the equipment details that are highlighted in blue or pink or green or yellow.
They'll look different.
Any questions on that?
Still with us.
So,
Inspector.
Claire,
We need to wait till we get this week
so
off
this
on
is
that. We're
correct.
just gonna tell all
If
them.
I
And
understand
they're
you
gonna
correctly,
come in right.
you're gonna send it to us, and then we're gonna fill out the personnel and the equipment in lieu of any of that emails that I got from Becky that has those forms and all that, and we're gonna send that to you, and each department's gonna take care of that on their own.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes. And Chris got a couple of we got a couple of different types of information. So Jeff sent us his in a spreadsheet, the spreadsheet that we got the first time, and y'all sent it on handwritten sheets. Lynn sent it on he sent his actual timesheet. So we could use all of that information to develop what's in there. And on y'all's, we put in the time that we had so far. And I didn't put in the equipment. Precinct 1 had some equipment noted, but I didn't know what size it was, so I didn't put that in yet. But we'll be able to do that relatively quickly when we get, if we have the cost code, and build that information back up. So basically, you'll just use this, Margaret, and over here on the personnel, everybody is on that list, unless you have a new employee. And then we'll have to add it to there, but there's spaces to add. So all you'll have to do I'm not all you have to do. I know it's a pain in the rear, but will be to enter the hours there.
In the purchases, I just want us to send those receipts over with it and make a copy and email
Yeah.
those to Chris.
Yes, you can note them here on this page in this peak part where it says provide a description of the work task, notable activities performed, as well as all equipment supplies used. So if you have something significant or that we need to look for, you can certainly note it there.
You want all the receipts put there? Or just
No, you don't have to. It's just if you had something, because we're going to anything that we pay, we're going to capture through the system. So, we'll know that it's going to be on there. Because we're not going to identify those, unless we identified it to the commissioner or something. So, any questions? Is Daryl here? Oh, okay. I'm open to suggestions. Okay.
I just wondered, the next time, and I know the sheriff did it for us to some extent and just in a way of helping, but they served as a dispatch to some extent for what was flowing in and out of the Cowboy Church command post that they had set up, and I just wondered if we maybe want to look at a more extensive version of that so that when it comes time to compile that we float it through that central dispatch and have a log of everything a little more conveniently. It worked fine the way we were calling each other, but we just didn't have a comprehensive compiled list when it's said and done as to, they kept us updated continually about what the sandbag material was at, or if road blockage signs needed to go here or there. I asked.
Well, they had the eyes out in the county.
Yeah, they were seeing everything, and
Yeah.
it just maybe make a little sense to dispatch through them, because you may have had personnel set up or have the ability to set up in there just for that purpose, to tell us, or we tell you, or you call us and let us know that we keep some running record, of that. It might be a smart way to do it going forward. Y'all already kept that to some extent for us.
They didn't start off with that, though. Initially, our first response was to, once we got into Pleasant Valley, everything was flooding, was getting people out and responding with vehicles that we need to get in there. Then I went ahead and had the command post set up at the Shell originally. And then after probably 3 hours into that, then we got into when you start keeping up with all of what we got where. But once we got personnel on the scene to do that, then it's easier to do it that way.
Yeah.
But those first initial stages, whenever it wasn't a planned event, it just so much that rain started, and when it dumped, it started pouring in there. Then 911 lights up, and we're blocking roads, doing everything we can, get tech stock, trying to get them out as quick as we can.
Right.
Of course, everybody was just that first 3 hours was just shorthanded.
Right.
That's all you could do.
Well, the other thing that kind of when the sheriff and I talked about this, as things started slowing down, we could have probably had a larger presence at the combined EOC. But quite honestly, we work so much different at the city. Their purchasing department, they have a full purchasing department, they set up everything went through there, they requisition. We don't operate that way. We had after hours, quite frankly, everybody, because of the work they do, the longevity they've had, they know who to get a hold of. Now, our biggest job is to gather all that back together and get it in an orderly way and explain it so the auditor can record it and report it. That's the bad part of having decentralized accessibility to getting the equipment. No one asked, we ordered, we got the light towers that were necessary, got porta johns where they were necessary. Some of that went through the city. They're probably going to bill us back on some of those. We'll have to work out who's paying for what. But we don't have the depth of personnel to operate that, and yet everything got done.
Oh, yeah. No.
And that's the most important part of it now, is piecing it together. That's why I keep everything on a big chief tablet, run through it, add it in, and keep up with it, and that's kind of what everybody's got to do, is to do that and then get the appropriate entries made. But I don't know how else to handle that. I don't know whether y'all have got suggestions.
I think going forward, you always look back at what you went through, but to have maybe someone from the auditor's office that's designated to contact, hey, we need to get an auditor set up, it's going to be a long-term event, let's get them in on it right now, to go to the EOC or wherever our operations center will be. That way you're going to have dedicated someone from the auditor's office.
Get them a seat at the table.
Well,
right, yeah. But you got to have someone designated. Just can't, nobody will call Deb up and say, hey, need you out here now. And, she's got.
Actually, they can stay in their office because their phone number's there. It was a 3-day holiday weekend. Everybody was gone. It was part of our deal at the point we moved into what we thought this was really getting to. So that kind of put a hamper on things.
Yeah, because the first event, which ran into the flooding of the river, was not going to be a long term, maybe the whole day, maybe the next day. Once everybody's out of the areas, everybody's been rescued out of homes, and we'll just cord it all off, and we'll probably just keep the trailer set up and maintain a heavy presence out there. But it kept going.
Yes. Kept going. But like I say, we did well anyhow. But the other might have been a little more organized and better, but just the way that hit. But to me, where the city, you're within their facility, they relocated, they're still tied into their computer support and everything. We're there as a guest. I honestly think our accounting offices are well to stay in their regular office, and you get them by email, phone. Yeah.
Some of this was so, it was a roller coaster, obviously, but when we got to the point where we were facing the most damaging historic flood, where we knew we were probably going to have to evacuate the downtown jail because of the generator power failures. We had all the information. We had to call in special project people overtime to start getting ready to evac inmates. We can't take 105, whatever our count was, females in the annex. So we're going to have to go out of county right away. How are we going to be able to get there? Is there flooding where we're going?
Yeah.
There's so much logistics that we had to bring other people from the jail just to deal with the jail side of the evacuation, plus feeding. We got to close downtown jail. What are we going to do? So all these things were in motion for that whole, third day of this event, I think. I don't remember now, I don't know the word, but.
Well, that kind of started happening on Friday, and, I think everything went, in an A or A+ manner because of a lot of individual ingenuity and commitment. But from a standpoint of reporting administration, it's going to take a little more work to get it back together and capture all that we can. We'll probably miss some things. But those hours where you brought those people in, I did ask about that. Those are countable because we were planning mitigation. So.
We finished?
I'm not sure.
Just thinking out loud.
Deb, let me ask on the materials side of this. We all furnish materials separate and apart. Is it important that that be designated specifically from each yard or each precinct? Or we see that number right now as a rolled up number.
Commissioner Court meeting right now. Call me back.
We all had a piece and the portion that went into materials that we utilized from a sand or reject perspective. Is it important that we break that out amongst the four of us, or can we keep it rolled up into one number?
We're not going to charge you that precinct by precinct. We're going to charge it all to the flood event.
Okay.
So it'll all be charged the same type of lines. Unless you just want to know, but I need to set that up now to.
But
There's
we're
not
going
a
to pay for
reporting requirement.
we'll pay for that out of a joint fund. We did a special fund, and part of that kind of leads me to the 08 order we passed, which hand Meredith a copy of that so you can look and see what we're talking about. There's another one. This is the bottom of that, goes on to the next page.
Sorry.
Right.
But what I'm looking at in that policy was not limited the way it's stated, I don't think, to the 2008 event, but we may need to reaffirm it in next Monday's meeting and establish a fund to put in there to start that with. We transferred from those two other accounts. We approved that Tuesday to move those out and close those out. Do we need to probably then establish a designated fund with these same policies for next Monday?
We're going to use the same fund that we used for the prior floods. Yeah, it's been since 2008, there's nothing in there now, so
Okay.
we're going to use that. It's Fund 260.
Okay.
So it's 260, Fund 260, Department 260, and then all the regular lines that we normally use. Okay. So we'll accumulate it there.
So you'll just transfer from the general fund contingency as you need to, or do we need to establish them now?
We'll do a projection and see what it looks like we're going to need, and then we'll do that. You know, if it looks like it's going to be the whole 200,000, we'll do that right off the bat. But we have some funds left over in those that we transferred in just like this before that we never transferred back out. So it's got a little money in it, not a lot. But
part of why we did this was in 2007, because we didn't have a policy covering exempt personnel for working, 50, 60 hours a week. We couldn't compensate them. This effort was to provide that. If that will meet your principles to pay on that, then that's what I want us to follow. If not, we will reaffirm that on Monday.
I think we need to reaffirm the 2008 order, but certainly reach back and and say it's a standing order, and we're just reaffirming it because it has to be in place before the event in order to be able to pay exempt employees. The overtime, the non-exempt is no problem, but the exempt employees can't be paid. And of course, officials can't be paid anymore anyway because their salary is set.
Elected officials, they first started out, Craig thought we could count that time for overall threshold money. We can't do that. They went back and checked that. So it's not that elected officials aren't worth something, it's just they're not worth it in this deal. So
the basic theory is it's the costs that are extra to the county. So regular hours aren't going to be allowed. We're going to report them up, but they're not going to be allowed in the FEMA reimbursement plan.
They'll count towards the 20% match. So, but the overtime hours is we're going for reimbursement on.
Correct.
And our employees will see this on the next pay period? The overtime?
If it was turned in, yes. I think Karen's not here. He's still.
Karen was here just a minute ago.
We lost the treasurer and the chief deputy.
Yeah. I can find out right quick, but let y'all know. But I think it would. If y'all turned it. If you turned it in last Friday.
I know my guys reported their time as it was, so.
Yeah. If you turned it in on Friday or Monday, it'll be on this check. I know payroll auditor Corey was here till about 7 last night, so there's something amiss going on with this payroll, besides it just being a very short week. But
the bigger thing, you can't linger. This needs to come in because it's going to be a tremendous workload on Karen Providence to get this all entered, because we're talking about a pretty fair number of people. So don't wait till the last moment to get it in if you want to try to get your people paid.
Well, the payroll's already done for this time. So if you haven't turned it in, it's too late for this time, because we've already processed the payroll. We have a policy that says we'll pay for the overtime as it's incurred at this point.
And in this event, we need to pay them because the president has said most likely he's going to approve this, which means then that will be, we don't get anything back if they take comp time. Now, they can donate it back to the county. They can write a check if they want to. Okay.
When does that time end, Deb? Is it Friday or cuts off at Friday?
No, for the payroll, Thursday at midnight.
Thursday at midnight. So they're Friday and Saturdays on the next pay period?
Correct. Correct.
Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
And then you got to remember Monday is a paid holiday.
Also, but it's not. It doesn't add to overtime.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't count. So you've got to work beyond 40 hours of actual work, and then the 8 hours at regular time is added on to that.
Yeah. So overtime would be over 48 hours
that week.
Yeah. Good.
But it's basically double time because they're going to get paid for their holiday hours.
Sheriff, as your guys are out on patrol and stuff, we ought to look and see if there are porta-johns left any place. I think we've got all the light towers back. The only porta-johns I know we're going to keep the 4 that are at the pod. They'll stay there. They're up on the sidewalk out of the way.
Ray, did you put out regulars, and they stood out there regulars and regular?
And there's still a few left where they had the deputy stationed at. I know they were called Monday and Tuesday to pick that stuff up, and they still have it.
Okay. Now, this, depending on how the recovery effort works, if it's volunteers we're going to wind up having out there, then we may wind up putting porta-johns back there so that they have someplace to go to the restroom. But let's do that. Let's get these cleared, because I think there's going to be very few of the others that we're going to put roll-offs and porta-johns out there. So what I want that to try to do is to work that through each commissioner as you make contact with the people in your precinct and you've determined they do not have flood insurance. Then we want to make sure we've got a good accountability of how we're going to do that.
If they have flood insurance, Judge, we're going to let the insurance deal
Yes.
with that?
Yeah.
Is there anything wrong, and I know Commissioner Harvey had visited with me about, is there anything wrong with us picking up bulky waste in front of the customer's residence if they wanted to, put their carpet out or some trim that was ruined or any of that? Can we go ahead and just pick it up with dump truck?
Quite honestly, they are getting money from FEMA that covers the removal and disposal of the things in their house. So that should be their deal.
No, I'm talking the ones outside of insurance.
Outside of insurance, let's put a roll-off out there and, they try to, like, if you've got 3 houses, on that time on Wellington, we scattered them down and we had to put them on private property. There wasn't any right-of-way room to.
Well, when I talk to the roll-off people, it typically took 3 roll-offs per home. So you're thinking like I was thinking, and he set me straight that it would fit. So
Yeah.
I was just
Yeah.
mistaken.
Yeah, they just have to empty them more often. And that's kind of what, we asked for the state air guard people to stay on hand as we get into this, so they would set up and watch those things and call them in and say,
Okay.
they're going to be full in a couple of hours.
Right. It worked real well last time on the ones, but I'm with you. Probably most affected individuals now are under the insurance umbrella.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know they're going to think we ought to be there, that it's not right to do it that way. We need to allow what they paid their insurance for to take care of it. What else?
Deb, the part-time people that we have in precinct, how is that gonna work? I saw that you had a special section there for them.
On the temporaries?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm putting them on, the temporaries that are full-time temps are on the regular time schedule, and their rate is the total rate that we pay to my staff. So, and they have an overtime and a straight time rate on the sheet that I just showed you. And if it's extra help that we don't normally have, then we'll put that in our invoice part.
Now, he's got some people on temp service that are working, if their total time is devoted to flood work, so their 40 or 50 hours would be on that. Once he goes back to use them as regular workers, then they go off of that reporting.
If those temporary workers used equipment, we need to talk about that.
Yes.
So we'd probably have to do something a little differently on that. If they used equipment, because then we'll have to track their hours the same kind of way.
Okay. Yeah, because we had
Not yet.
one
I
that
was
had
gonna bring that-
CDL.
No, we're talking about raised.
And we drove a dump truck the whole time.
Okay. The people, we use some temporary people from my staff. Nancy, I think will be gathering that together. We had somewhere between 70 and 100 hours. One of them may have exceeded 40 hours. But she did us, I don't know where she got, her mother's a storm chaser. Maybe it rubbed off. But man, I listened to her handle 2 calls the other night, and she knew what she was talking about. So. Okay. Anything else? If you all see the need that we need to get something, Meredith has got it down pat to give notice, and we'll get it out. Media, we'll try to get it out as early as we can. We won't wait till the 2-hour minimum. We'd rather have you all, because this helps get that information out to people. We are video streaming these meetings. We do this, so it's available to the public off the county website. Okay, it's 4:14, and we're adjourned.